morning, everybody. It is a beautiful spring day, and I am actually here at a local orchard, which has given me permission to come and take some scion wood or grafting tips from a particular species of apple tree that I would like to propagate on rootstock at home. So that's what I'm doing this morning. I'm here cutting some tips, trying to get some good stuff so that they will properly graft onto the rootstock, and I will keep you apprised as we go along. So cutting scion wood, as it's called, is new to me. I have never grafted trees before, but I thought it would be fun to give it a try. And there's specific things that you're looking for when you're looking for tips to cut. You don't want water shoots, the ones that go straight up, and you don't want old wood because that just has fruit buds on it. What you want is a nice new growth from the last season, and this little piece here might do us just fine. I'm just looking around to see if there are any others. These are not my trees, of course, so I'm trying to be very conscientious about what I take. And here, this one here might work. Here you can see the thicker part there. This is old growth. The rings right there. And we don't want that. In fact, this one probably won't work now that I look at it because it's got lots of big buds on it. Okay, so here I have found two that would possibly be a good choice. You can see here that it comes from a horizontal, and it is a nice length with just leaf buds on it, not fruiting buds, and I can take that piece right there. Sorry, just trying to juggle this so you can see what I'm taking. Hello everybody. I started a video a while back that I haven't put together or posted yet because, well, it wasn't finished. I had too many other things to do with regard to that yet. So now is the time to finish this. So I thought I'd show you what I'm working on. I have some things here. I'm just going to switch directions. Give me a second to figure out how to do that. It won't let me do that from here. Well, hold on. I'll just switch it around. Okay, I have a few things with me here that might look familiar. If you've ever done any sort of tree grafting or anything, and some of you might have, some of you might not have. But I decided one day that I wanted to get some grafts done of a tree that we have out back that has no name, and we have no idea where it came from. It was just growing there when we moved in. So we decided that it was a good apple and we wanted to try and propagate it and give it a name. I also found some Mott's Pink apples. I'm not sure if I took a picture of that when I bought them or not, but I decided to graft some of those too, and you probably just watched me in the previous video cutting them, and so now we're going to graft them on. So what I did is I bought some rootstock. Now, I don't know if you know much about grafting. I don't, but rootstock determines the height of your tree, how quickly your tree matures, and how soon it produces fruit. It proved very difficult for me to get rootstock, and so what I ended up getting through BC fruit tasters, I believe they're called, was this here, and it is called Malice M7 or EMLA. and they are 1/4 inch. I bought 20 of them because I didn't really know how many I was going to need. In hindsight, I could have bought more because who knows if this is going to work. We shall see. At any rate, what I also have is called scion wood. So these little branches are first year growth from last year. And they have little buds on them, but they don't have the kind that stick straight out like this, which are the fruiting buds. That would be last year's wood, because this is New Year's wood. It doesn't have those yet. Anyways, this is what you want to get in order to graft. And you want these from near the top of the tree. Luckily, these trees were very dwarf sized. The tree rootstock that I bought should give a tree that is between 50 and 70% of regular tree size. Since you prune apple trees anyways, I didn't think I needed super dwarf stock. Unfortunately, these have been in the fridge for a couple of months while I waited for rootstock to come in, and they've gotten a bit of gray mold on them. I hope that's not going to hinder them too much. I'm wiping it off as I use them. I have some other rootstock here as well that I got from our little trees out back, and they were very hard to come by because that tree was quite stunted with the heat that we've had lately. Anyhow, moving on, so this doesn't take forever. Ideally, you'd probably want grafting knives, special tools. I could have gone out and bought that, but we're a little pressed for money sometimes. Spring is one of them because we've gone all winter without selling any of our livestock. So I'm just going to use a knife, a nice sharp blade. This one looks a little dirty, but it isn't. I've cleaned it off and bleached it. I've got some electrical tape instead of using parafilm or grafting tape because I couldn't find any anywhere. It's kind of remarkable considering we live in an area with orchards everywhere, but I guess most of them don't make their own trees. They must buy them. I've got pruners for trimming ends and whatnot. I did find some grafting wax, which I don't think that I will end up using. Just because if I were using maybe the parafilm or the grafting tape, I might. But I'm using the electrical tape, and the electrical tape will need to be cut off, whereas the grafting tape doesn't need to be cut off. It disintegrates and breaks open as the tree grows. But this should be stretchy enough to allow growth during the time I need it, and I can always reapply if I need to. This tape, I don't know what this is. It's sort of like grafting tape. It stretches like grafting tape. It sort of feels like it, but it's green. I tried it on my first graft to see if it would work, and it did. It stretches a bit, and it seems strong enough to tighten the bond between the cambium layers and the main tree stems. But it doesn't stick to itself, which is fine, because then you can just put the other tape over top of it. At any rate, I kept it in case I wanted to use it, so there's that. Cutting these trees with the diameter that they are is quite finicky, and I nearly cut myself the first whole time I tried. So what I did was I made a guard for myself out of a piece of plastic barrel that we had cut out to make for the lambs to stay warm. So what I did is I just cut a big enough hole in it with a drill that all of my stock can fit through it, and therefore if I slip with the knife, which I've done several times already, it hits this instead of my hand. So that has been a terrific tool so far. The other thing I have is I have this product here. It is pruning paint. So, you know, when you trim your rose bushes or whatever trees that you prune, you want to make sure that moisture doesn't get in and start rotting the bark from the end. So I've seen on a few different videos on YouTube that they've used spray paint like this. You can also use latex paint, I understand. This stuff stinks pretty bad. I'm not really sure what's in it. Not really sure I want to use it, but in lieu of finding the tools that I wanted to use, this is going to have to do. So I've been using this to spray the actual scion wood and the top of it after I've got it onto my bottom piece, onto my rootstock. And here you can see I've done a few pieces already. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the different methods because I'm sort of trying what I can here. As you can see, my scion wood is a fair bit smaller in some cases than my rootstock, and that's just the way it is. I can't change that. So what I'm trying is I'm trying a couple of different grafting methods to see which ones work the best, and I guess we'll end up seeing when they grow together. Anyways, that's my preamble. Now I will do a couple for you, and I'll report on it later on to see how they worked. All right, I'm not really sure what's wrong with my camera. It keeps losing its stability every time I try to record. But we're going to try this real quick here and see what happens. Excuse the mess behind me. I need to get another cover for my little greenhouse, and they're out of stock apparently at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do up one of my grafts for you so you can see what I'm working on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find a nice sized scion here, and as I mentioned, for some reason these have a little bit of dust, or not dust, mold on them, so I'm just sort of cleaning them off. This branch seems a little dry to me, but we'll give it a go anyways. I don't know, I could maybe pick a different one, but I'm trying to pick the largest ones I have so that I can do a particular type of graft. So I'm going to use this one anyhow, and I'm just going to cut this dry end off like that. Doesn't look too bad inside. It does sort of have a nice greenish color to it. I don't know if you can see that. Where's the camera? There it is. Okay, and I'm going to pick a rootstock that I can put it on. Now here you can see there's obviously a very big difference. Okay, we're just going to do a quick graft here. As I mentioned, we've got some scion wood down here from our mystery tree out the back, and I'm going to try and graft some of these in the hopes that we can reproduce that exact tree. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to find a scion that is roughly the same size as my rootstock, which is a bit hard to do because these are very small scions, and I don't know if you can see here, but this little spot right here, I can't use beneath that because that's 2-year-old wood, and this is where the 2nd year would have changed over, and then this from here on is 1st year wood. So I need to use 1st year's wood in order to graft, so this has to be cut off. I don't have my snippers here. Pause it.
Okay.
So I'm just going to cut this off right here so that all I'm using is a new piece of wood from last year. Oh, that is still crushing it and wrecking the wood. Anyways, the next step is to find an ideal place to put this. You don't want too much above your ground level, I can plant it a bit deeper and some of these nodes will turn into roots. So I'm going to choose somewhere in here, probably right about there. I'm going to cut this piece off and save that because I might be able to get roots to grow on it and create my own rootstock. The idea of the grafting is that you want the pieces that you open up to be about the same length, and then you want them pieced together so that the very edge of the bark, see that little ring around there where the bark is? Those two pieces on both need to be matched along the sides so that they can begin to heal, and that is what creates your graft. So I'm going to do just a plain whip graft on this one, I think. It's not too bad. I'm going to try and do the same size graft on this one, or sorry, cut on this one. Ideally you want to do it in one stroke. That one didn't work very well. And that one's not ideal either, so I'm going to do it one more time. That one didn't work good either. And this is probably why you want to have a grafting knife, because this actually has two edges on it, and a grafting knife only has one. The second edge on this side actually directs your knife away from what you're cutting. So it's not ideal. We'll try that. I think I'm going to cut the very end of this off because it doesn't fit in there very well. And you never really want to touch the cut part with your knife. Now, this actually would be ideal for doing a cleft graft, and I might just skip using this rootstock and put this on a different one since I had to cut it differently. So I think I'm going to do that. Now, I didn't go very much into the different kinds of grafts because I am not an expert at it. And I'm just trying out whatever I can to make these fit because my rootstock is quite a bit thicker than my scion wood is. So in some cases I really don't have much of a choice. But to try what I can. And here, because I'm going to be cutting down the stalk, I'm going to actually use my little guard that I made so that I don't cut myself. So I'm going to go in here. This is called a partial cleft because I'm not doing it right down the center. I'm doing it sort of off-centered. And there's why I have that guide there, because it can be pretty dangerous. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this in here. I might need to make that a bit longer. In fact, I think I do. I'll do that first. This is, I'm not, you know, all that practiced at this, so it's not a precise science for me. So I'm going to put the big side to the inside and the little cut to the outside. I'm going to jam it right down in here as far as I can. Now, ideally, I don't think you want this to show like that, so I could cut a little bit more off of it. I can't see anything. It's so dim in here. Like, I literally can't. You're right in the light. Okay, so I'm going to stick this in here between where I cut it, and I'm going to put it down as far as I can. And then I'm going to squeeze that together with the tape when I tape it, in the hopes that the cambium layers, which is right beneath the bark, match up. Those have to match up in order for it to start to heal and create a graft. You want to cover the entire open ends of anything that you've cut to prevent it from drying out. So hopefully that side is matched up well enough and it doesn't move so that it can start to heal and create a graft. I'm going to leave 1, 2, 3 buds on this end. And then I'm going to take this stuff and I'm going to spray it on the end and all over this piece here to seal it so that it doesn't lose moisture. And that should also make it really obvious when these buds start to appear if the graft works, so that we'll know that it's growing. And I'm going to put it in here. Now, I labeled the first ones that I did, and I'm not going to label these ones. I only have 2 types, so that's it. Let's see if we can do another graft with this one here. With this one, we'll just do we'll try and do a straight whip graft. And I'm only reciting what I've learned off of the internet. Whip and tongue graft is what is most used these days, apparently, because apparently it snugs things up nicely and allows the plant the best opportunity to grow. This type of union here, without putting the tongue in it, used to be used quite frequently, but it doesn't offer as much stability. I've been doing sort of some of each, so we'll see how it works. But it's very important that you meet that bark edge up with the bark edge on the rootstock, because that's where your graft is going to occur. And I'm messing this up because it's not in alignment. All right, so here we are a couple of weeks later after I have grafted the scions onto the rootstock. And we're starting to see growth now. I don't know if you can see this here, but this is a bud that has erupted from the rootstock. No, we don't want that to grow, so we're going to pick those off on all of these that have shown growth, because we want it to go right up the stalk and feed and heal the areas that we have grafted to. Some of them might not take. There's a few that don't seem to show as much growth as others, but here you can see right there, that is a bud from the rootstock, which we don't want. So I'm going to take that off. And we're going to take off any others that are also showing there, because we want that to go right up to this area where it needs to heal from grafting. And you can see here that we've got, let's see, which one am I holding here? Some buds are starting to come out. It's kind of hard to see on some of them. This one's really good here, so we know that that one has worked. The graft on this one has succeeded, and we should be able to get an apple tree to grow out of that. Now this happens to be one of the Mott's Pink that I got from a local orchard, so that should be really fun. Here's another one, also a Mott's. If you can see that, I can zoom in a little bit, but my camera doesn't do a very good job of it. Anyways, now that I'm seeing growth on these plants, and especially the growth on the actual grafted stalk, it's time to plant them in their own pots so that they can continue to grow and heal. Now, I'm not going to bother undoing the graft tape and seeing how the graft is working. If it's growing, I'm going to assume that it's working, and I'm just going to plant it. And even the ones that aren't growing, I'm going to plant anyhow, because that way I can keep my rootstock growing and use it for another year, maybe next year, if I don't get enough growth out of these ones. Here you can see a couple others there, and here. So I've got a few that have definitely taken off, and they're certainly showing signs of success, so I'm pretty pleased with that. So I'm just going to pot these up, and I'll give you another update in a couple weeks. There's another bud from the scion, or from the rootstock, which we don't want. Yeah, so it's been an interesting experiment. I didn't have quite all of the tools that I was hoping I'd have in order to do this, so we made do with what we had. And yeah, if I get a couple of fruit trees out of it, that's great. If some of them don't make it, that's okay. We'll keep growing the rootstock so that we've got a source for it next year instead of having to hunt all over the place. And hopefully we'll have a few trees in the future that we can pull scions from and grow some more. So yeah, I'll give you another update in a couple weeks. Stupid thing. All right. I don't know what's wrong with my camera.